Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I am so glad to be here with you today. It is a gorgeous Friday. Today is June 23rd. It is 5 p.m. on the Pacific Coast, and I am just thrilled to be back. You have no idea. It has been a long couple of weeks. And I have to say, first of all, that I am grateful that you are hanging out with me yet again, even though I had to take a kind of an unscheduled break. It turns out that very sadly, my father passed away. And so one day I'm on the phone with my sibling talking to them, and then like I had a day to buy tickets and pack the suitcases, and then the next day I was on my way across to the other side of the country. So I'm going to talk about that in just a moment, but before I get into all of that, so I want to welcome you once again to Live with Miri as part of the League of Gluten-Free Adventurers. It is always a joy to sit down and talk with you each week. So my name is Miri Pizann. I am a gluten-free coach, and I have been gluten-free for about a decade at this point. And I remember what it was like to first go gluten-free. And on the one hand, there was all of the stuff that you had to learn and memorize, and you had to completely learn new behaviors and new ways of looking at your world, what you eat, and how you socialize. And on the other hand, there was so many feelings around this. I don't know, maybe not everybody has these feelings, but it was a tough road for me. And what I've discovered is it doesn't have to be. And so that's why I'm here, is because I want better for you. I want you to not have to struggle. I want you to feel stronger and confident and ready to take on, and to be able to go out and eat and feel like, a normal person. So if that speaks to you, then you are in the right place. Come sit, let us talk and chat together, because that's what this is all about. That's what the League of Gluten-Free Adventurers is all about, is so that we can connect and have a feeling of community, and to know that you're not the only one, you're not alone. So that's what we're here for. And I am so glad that you are here with me today. This truly means so much. So, so thank you for people who are coming by. Do feel free to drop in a comment or a message. Let me know where you're calling it, where you're watching from. I love to know like where in the world you are. So let's see. Okay. So so today's topic is about gluten-free travel, but also eating without notice. One of the things that I talk about all the time is like, this is a situation where you need to constantly prepare. You need to be thinking ahead and planning ahead. And, as long as you have notice, you can do things. You can, like it kind of makes being spontaneous a little bit more difficult, but you can still go out, enjoy foods, enjoy friends and family, eat with other people without feeling like a burden or feeling ostracized. It is totally possible as long as you are able to prepare. But in some cases, you can't always. For example, like I said, within 2 days of my dad passing, I was on an airplane flying to the other side of the country. And on the way out, it was probably about, I don't know, 10 hours of travel time. I live near a very tiny little airport, so my husband and I had to fly to a hub. We flew to Phoenix. From there, we flew across the country to another hub. We ended up in DC. And then from DC, we flew to another little tiny airport that, nobody has ever heard of unless you have lived there. But it really kind of threw a lot of things into sharp focus for me. And then on the return trip, we stayed out there for 2 weeks to support, to put together a memorial service, support my sibling who was living with our dad at the time. And now that and then we came back and we went from the little tiny, instead of going to DC, we went to Charlotte, which is another major airport. We flew again to Phoenix, and this time we had a 7-hour layover in Phoenix, which ended up making our trip a 17-hour travel day. It was horrendous. And on top of that, hey, guess what? Not only were we in Phoenix for a ridiculous amount of time, but on top of that, they don't really have a lot of gluten-free food. So on the way out, I was not prepared for that. Me, I was not prepared for that. But on the way back, having 2 weeks to be like, oh, we're going back this way, I know what to do, I was able to pack my bags and eat more safely. So I wanted to talk with you about that. Oh, hi, Andy. Thanks for stopping by. It's good to see you. So I wanted to talk with you about what can you do? How can you survive having to travel when the airports won't feed you? The airlines won't feed you. Like they literally offered us on every single flight, all 6 of them out and back, right? Every single flight, they offered us the choice between cookies and pretzels. And I was like, I'm gluten free. And they were like, oh, well, if you had paid to go fly first class or even business class, they're eating a gluten free meal up front. And I was like, can you help a girl out? And they were like, no, no. So I did not eat breakfast on the flight out until like 10 o'clock at night. Once I got to DC, they have a Five Guys there, which, you can't eat. They have burgers, but you can't have the bun, but you can have it in a bowl and you can throw lots of vegetables and sauces on there. And their fries and they grill their bread on a separate grill than they grill the burgers. And on top of that, their fries, the only thing that goes in the fryer is potato. That's it. So I was able to eat in DC, but that was like at the end of the day. And we kind of had to scarf it down because we had a very short layover. So it was really tough. And what I've learned from this and what I want to share with you is if you are like scrambling, like you've got to go and you've got to go right now, grab something from your stash, right? I'm always preaching this. Make sure that you have a stash. You have a stash of snacks at home, at your office. If you have a car, you want to keep some in your car so that you're never stranded in a situation where you're hungry. And then, of course, what did I do? I completely forgot because I'm human. We're all human. And sometimes things happen. But yeah, if I had been thinking about it, I could have brought some Kind bars or some Pamela breakfast bars. As it was, I was able to go into the airport convenience stores and pay way too much money for some beef jerky. I had to check to make sure that they don't use soy sauce or that they use gluten-free soy sauce in the beef jerky, but you can do that. I don't know why, but that's frequently one of the marinades that they use for jerky. So, but the other thing that I could have done if I had been thinking, and again, this is just because like I was not in a very clear state of mind, you know, fruit. Fruit is gluten free. They sell apples, oranges, bananas at every airport. I've never seen one that didn't have fruit. So fruit is an option. Fresh fruit. Once you start getting into the dried fruit, they might start putting stuff on it again. So you have to read labels again. But if you're just like if you need food, have a banana. If you hate bananas, have an orange. And there's also like for people who don't have to be dairy free like me, they often have yogurt parfaits, cheese items, lots of stuff. So there are options if you are thinking about it, and believe you me, now that I have been through this experience, I will know in the future what I need to do to take care of myself. But I will say also this, you can bring food with you on the airplane. You cannot bring liquids. You cannot bring anything that's kind of jelly. So Jello is out. Uh, Pudding is probably a no. Anything that like could splash like that, but you could bring a sandwich or whatever else it is that you wanted to eat. You just have to make sure that it's going to pass TSA guidelines. Okay. So let me see. Yeah. And fruits and nuts, totally. Well, nuts, again, you have to be careful what they're putting on it. Sahale is a company that, as far everything that I have seen has been gluten free. I'm not sure if the entire company is, but everything that I've seen that they sell is. So, but Planters is iffy. You got to be careful with them. So, but you can bring your own. You can order and bring your own. You can ship food to wherever you're going if you have enough time to prepare for that. Or you can go and buy snack foods and stuff them in your carry-on and have that ready to go. And that is exactly what I did on the way back. On the way back, I packed myself a bagel with cream cheese, vegan cream cheese, because I can't have dairy. I packed a sandwich, a turkey sandwich, and I put like an entire 2 boxes of Kind bars and Pamela bars in my in my backpack. And so I had food the entire time that I like, that I enjoy, that makes me happy. And so we were actually able, I was actually better fed on the way back because I had time to prepare for it. But I did okay on the whole trip. So I wanted you to know that it is possible even without any preparation. And I'll also tell you this. I'm kind of running into my own time a little bit, but I did want to tell you this. When I got out to this little tiny town in the middle of nowhere that nobody's ever heard of unless you live there, there was a health food store. And remember, this is on the other side of the country from where I currently live. But there was a health food store. And when I went in there, I mean, like, I had to drive like a half an hour to get to the big city nearby. But when I went into that health food store, they had, I would say 80% of the same brands that I buy at home. And I'm not sure. I suspect that it's because like the same brands are kind of like, hey, health food stores, we're the only ones that are selling this. And so all the health food stores are like, yes, I'll take that. So, but it was really good to know. It was very comforting because it was like, oh, okay, I can make the same foods at home. Hi, Terry. Drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to see where you're calling in from. But it felt good because I was able to make the same foods. And let me tell you, I keep recipes with me on my phone, right? Because I don't know where I'm going to be from one day to the next. And so that was super, super helpful. I knew exactly what ingredients that I needed. When I went to the grocery store and the health food store, I was like, oh, I make this all the time, so I'll just get the ones from here. And so when we went back to the house, I was actually able to eat the same foods that I eat at home at my siblings' house, and I was able to cook for them. And so we all of us ate the food together. And let me tell you something else. My sibling does not have any food allergies, and by the end of the trip they were asking me for recipes for all of the gluten and dairy-free food that I made for them during the entire trip. It is possible. And if this is something that you struggle with, I am happy to help you. Just send me a DM and we can talk. All right, so we've got Cape Coral, Florida, and Los Angeles. That's fabulous. All over the country. We got the whole spread. All right, so that was the big stuff that I wanted to talk about for the travel. And I did get a letter or an email really that I wanted to share with you about that I thought was really important also, because here I am saying, bring recipes of your favorite foods so that you can make them wherever you go. But here's one that kind of takes the opposite approach. There, she writes, Miri, help, I'm in a rut. I feel like I'm eating the same 3 dishes over and over and nothing feels safe. Nothing tastes the same when it's gluten-free. And I am so tired of the same food. What can I do? And this was sent in by Carrie. Carrie, I feel your pain. I get it. When you're eating gluten-free, it can feel, or any kind of allergy food, especially in the beginning, it can feel like your options are getting smaller and smaller, and there's less and less opportunity for you to branch out. And you're right that nothing tastes like wheat except for wheat. And so one of the things that is really important is to let go of this idea that food is going to taste the same. It might not. In fact, it probably won't. It won't taste the same. However, that does not mean that it won't be good. Okay. So what you want to do is kind of like open your doors and your heart and your mind a little bit and be ready to try foods, not as this is exactly the same as it used to be, but with the options that I have right now, what tastes good? And you might be surprised by what you can find. So I want you to think back to your before times, and instead of trying to recreate old dishes and then getting disappointed, try a variation. Okay. So who knows, you might discover a new favorite. I'll give you an example. My mother used to make a tuna casserole, and I know, like, it's just so bizarre, but it was one of the foods that she actually made really well. My mom was not a good cook. My mom was not a good cook, and so there are very few recipes of hers that I like keep and savor. But her tuna casserole became one of my comfort foods, and it was the Kraft macaroni and cheese. She threw in a can of tuna fish, a can of small peas, and then she would use fried onions, right? And she'd mix them into the casserole, and then she'd put it on top, and that was, and then she baked it for a little while, and that was her tuna casserole. And it's not the most phenomenal thing on the world, but because I grew up with it, that was my comfort food. And it is incredibly difficult to find fried onions that are gluten-free. I know of 2 places that carry it in the country, Aldi's and Sprouts, and neither of those is anywhere near me. So I can pay 300 times the markup to buy an Aldi's brand and have it shipped to me through Amazon, or I can find a different substitution. So instead of trying to force fried onions into this new version of the gluten-free, dairy-free casserole, which, by the way, I have figured out something that works well for me. And I'm not saying it's going to work well for you, but it works well for me. And I love this, what I make now, but I can't put the fried onions in. So the other night after I got back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need comfort food. I was reeling and I didn't want to cook anymore, but kind of you gotta. So what I made was I made her recipe, but instead of using fried onions, I took some potato chips, and they were salt and pepper potato chips, and I just kind of crushed them up in the bag and sprinkled them in exactly the same way I would have. Was it the same? Absolutely not. But it was really good. I mean, for the dish, like it hit close enough that I was happy and I felt comforted by the dish. So that is what I want to share with you, is that you're not necessarily going to have things that are exactly the same, but you can still have good food. You just need to open up and try new things and understand it's not going to taste the same, but what tastes good instead. Okay? So if this is something, and I just want to say this again, that I understand that this can be really hard to figure out substitutions, to figure out like how to make it work in your life with your specific situation. And if you feel like you are struggling, DM me. I want to help. I am here to help. I want you to live your best life, your absolute best life. And I don't think that being gluten-free or dairy-free or vegan or soy-free or any of that should stop you from living a happy and fulfilling life. Okay. And if you feel that you're ready for that, then we need to talk. Drop me a DM, drop me a message, and let's connect because this is really important. All right, so that is everything that I have for you today. I hope that you have an amazing Friday, a beautiful weekend. Keep reading your labels, and I will check in with you again next week. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.